Alright, some sample density calculations for you. This is all from Unit 1, Chapter 3, Activity 7 in your Interactions in Physical Science textbook. Reminder, you can access that textbook online from my website. Just scroll down to the links section. The username and password are right there. We're in Unit 1, Chapter 3, Activity 7 on pages 115 to 118 in your textbook. Feel free to rewatch this before your test to review, or if you're having a hard time with some of the worksheets we're doing, this might just help you. Here we go. Calculating density. Alright, a small piece of shiny gray metal has a mass of 6.1 grams and a volume of 0.58 cubic centimeters. What is its density and what is the object made of? When I read a problem, I like to kind of underline some of the things that I see as I read. 6.1 grams. Grams is a unit for mass, so I'm going to label that right now. And a volume of 0.58 cubic centimeters. Cubic centimeters is a unit for volume. And then it says, what is its density? You always want to know what your goal is. So in this case, that's what I'm going for. When I see what is its density, I start thinking of the density equation. You might know it's D equals M over V. Your density is mass over volume. We've also been using this triangle thing in class. So I'm going to set us up and practice using that. When you set that up, the only thing you really have to know is that the mass goes on the top. The other two then will, of course, go on the bottom. So I set that up. I'm looking for density, so I'm going to write D equals. Then I come over to my triangle and I cover up whatever it is I'm looking for. So since I'm looking for D, I cover that up and I see M over V. I'm going to write that down. And then all I have to do is go to my problem and find the M and find the V, plug them in and solve. I did the work up front. So the M we already found is 6.1 grams. And the V, or the volume, up here we found was 0.58 cubic centimeters. And then I get on my calculator and plug in 6.1 divided by 0.58 gives me 10.52. And density is a fractional unit. It's grams over cubic centimeter. If you have a hard time with the units, just look back at your equations to help you out. M, the units for mass are grams, and the units for volume are cubic centimeters, so it's grams over cubic centimeters. That's where that comes from. So I've now answered the first part of the question, what is its density? Second part of the question, what is the object made of? Well, I'm going to have to use density to figure that out, since density is a characteristic property. So you'll look at your table of densities here, look for the density that's closest to your answer. In this case, 10.5 is closest to our answer, and that is silver. So I'm pretty confident that this object is made of silver. Calculating mass. A good strategy for using these sample problem PowerPoints and presentations and vodcasts might be to hit pause at this point, solve the problem on your own, and then hit play and see if it matches with the work you did. Alright, we're going to continue on. Calculating mass. Suppose you have a 1 liter or 1,000 milliliter container of gasoline. Milliliters is a unit for volume. When notice it's gasoline, that's probably going to be helpful for me in just a moment here, because I can find the density of that object with my table of densities. And the question is, what is the mass of the gasoline? That's my goal. So I'm going to go back to my triangle here, set it up. What goes on top? Mass goes on top. You got it. Mass on top, density and volume on the bottom. I'm looking for the mass, so I'm going to write M equals. I go over to my triangle and I cross out what I was looking for. In this case, it's the M. And I notice I have D times V. So I'm going to write that out. Then I need to go and find both the D and the V. And I'll be all set. When we look at the problem, volume, we found it was 1,000 milliliters, so I can plug that into the V spot. The density, the problem didn't tell me the density, but it did tell me it's gasoline. So if I know the substance, I can look up its density. So I'm going to go and find gasoline on my table of densities and use that density. In this case, it's 0.74 grams per milliliter. 0.74 grams per milliliter. I'm all set. I get out my calculator and punch that in, or in this case I can probably do it in my head. I get 740, and then the units, I'm looking for mass. The units of mass are grams. 740 grams is the mass of 1,000 milliliters of gasoline. Next one, feel free to pause here if you'd like to do the problem on your own before you see the solution. Calculating volume. Suppose you purchased a 45-gram chunk of copper. Grams, that's the unit for mass. Copper, I'm going to be able to find the density from that. What is its volume? That's what the question's asking me for. So there's my target or my goal. Set up our triangle again. Mass on top. The other two go on the bottom. I'm looking for volume. So I write V equals, cross out the V, and I have M over D. I'm going to go ahead and write that equation down. If I can just find the M and the D, I'll be all set. The mass we already found was 45 grams. And the density, it didn't tell me, but it did tell me copper. So again, I go to my table of densities, I locate copper, and I find its density is 8.9 grams per cubic centimeter. Get out my calculator, punch in 45 divided by 8.9, and that gives me 5.06. And since I'm finding volume, it's either cubic centimeters or milliliters. Since we're talking about a chunk of copper here that's a solid, we're going to go ahead and use cubic centimeters. 5.06 cubic centimeters is the volume of a 45-gram chunk of copper. If any of this is difficult for you, please see me or make a list of questions that you can ask in class. I'd be more than happy to help you out. Good luck.